Hey, paisanos, it's the
Bill and Ted Face the Music.
Super Show. Let's rock!
Station.
Hello and welcome to Who Watches, and this is our Bill and Ted Face the Music Super Show. I'm Travis Fishburne.
I'm Alex Burnell.
And tonight we have a special guest joining us. He is a writer for Gizmodo and IO9, Germain Lussier. Thank you for joining us to talk about the movie tonight.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. It should be fun.
Yeah, and I'm very excited that you're here. Travis turned me on to slash film like 12 or 13 years ago or something, and I read your work for a long time there. Read it currently still. It's a pleasure to have you with us, sir.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I was a slash film reader too before I became on there, so I sympathize. I get
Nice.
That's not the word. Whatever.
Still where I get the vast majority of my media news. But the moment that we'd all been waiting for in 2020 has come, and that's the new Bill and Ted movie finally came out. And in my opinion, this was a most triumphant film. And I'm excited to talk about it. So I guess, I don't know, let's just start with some general reactions. Germain, you want to start us off?
Sure. Yeah, I agree. I really, really enjoyed it. It's one of those movies, you know, like that when it started, I'm like, wait, am I actually watching this? Is this finally happening?
Yeah.
Because we've been waiting, probably, the last movie came out in 91, but we've been waiting for like 10 years for this movie. Never thought it was going to happen. So it takes a little bit of time for you to be like, okay, all right, let me settle in here.
Yeah.
And I think the movie is kind of like that too. It's kind of not exactly sure. It takes a little bit to really kind of kick into high gear. And when it does kick into high gear, there's a lot going on. But yeah, ultimately, I really, really enjoyed it. I think it takes kind of the best parts of Excellent Adventure and some of the best parts of Bogus Journey and kind of like puts them on the same track and then puts it, right to the end. So like for not only is it a really funny, sweet movie, I really love it as a cap to the franchise.
I do too. I totally agree on all those points. Some of the best elements, like just the fun, like traveling through time and picking out historical figures element from Excellent Adventure is replayed very nicely. The weirder elements of Bogus Journey, we got like death and killer robots from the future and hell come back in this in a big bad way, and some of my favorite parts of the movie. Travis, how about you?
Well, as you know, I had not seen Bogus Journey until this weekend.
That's blasphemy to me, because I grew up with Bill and Ted. Here's my Bill and Ted action figures right here. The rest of them are on the shelf behind me. But I'm a Bill and Ted diehard, so the fact that my good friend here hadn't seen Bogus Journey up until a few days ago is like baffling to me.
We all have our our little blind spots.
It's true.
Yeah, and when I watched it, I was like, oh my gosh, like I am enjoying this way more than I thought I would. And had I watched it earlier, I might have enjoyed it as much, if not more, than Excellent Adventure. But going right into Face the Music, I really loved the way that this movie just set everything up, and like you said, Germain, like pulls off like all these amazing things from the first two films, and just retains so much. One of the things I love the most is just the consistency of all of the jokes going throughout it. Right off the bat with Missy's wedding.
Oh yeah, this is a spoiler-filled podcast, by the way.
I was just about to ask.
Anybody listening, right. Spoilers abound. Spoilers all day. Okay. We're not holding back. Sorry.
The fact that she's married to Declan and like they hold it back is so perfect. Yeah, that whole speech is just a beautiful way to kind of like wrap up the story of the other generation, kind of.
Yeah.
Really, really funny.
Yeah. The opening scene slayed me. I've seen the whole movie twice now. I've watched the opening scene more than twice. But just that opening scene, just the very idea of Missy getting married to Deacon now, and Ted's dad being his own son, and all these things.
The line he gives and the look he gives back, like.
Yeah. I will say, like right from that scene is where Billy, I think, is it Billy who's doing the narration?
Yeah, I think so.
So like when she goes over kind of everything that we missed, obviously it's a very, very needed. But Travis, I'm curious, having just watched Bogus Journey, and I had seen it when it came out, but I watched it again recently. I really felt like they were bigger in Bonus Journey. Like after that, like they play on Mars at the end of the movie, and then this, like they became successful, cover Rolling Stone and all this stuff, but they weren't they didn't feel like it meshed to me. What do you guys think?
Yeah, because the end of Bogus Journey is a big old montage of, like you said, like all of their successes.
Yeah.
And they talk a little bit about that, about how there was this like breakup and how things just kind of went downhill. But you think...
Yeah, I just didn't feel like it's one of my few little gripes with the movie is that like they got at the end of the Bogus Journey, at least in my head, they got intergalactic,
right?
And in Face the Music, they became very famous. They became like Nickelback or something,
Right.
They weren't like the Beatles, like they kind of are at the end of Bogus Journey, and they never quite cover that. I mean, it's okay,
yeah.
You know what I mean? But that I was like, oh, I feel like they were bigger at the end of that movie. But again, maybe. I didn't get a chance to talk to the writers or anything, but maybe like that Mars thing was just kind of a joke.
Yeah, there is actually a reason for it. And again, this is like my Bill and Ted nerd pedantry coming out. But the writers did not write that postscript to Bogus Journey. All of that headline stuff, that was all created by the title house that did the closing credits. So they came up with like actually what happened to Bill and Ted after the movie, and the writers saw it and were like, "Oh, we didn't do that."
Oh, I had no idea that. I had no idea that. That makes so much more sense.
Right, which is like, so I've been reading that in opinions online and being like, oh, I guess not everybody listened to the commentary on the Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey Blu-ray. There's probably like 15 of us that listened to that and learned that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to maybe credit you, Alex, but write about that because that's fascinating because I didn't know that. Like, because it doesn't quite match. And then I thought about that for about 15 seconds.
Right.
And then I was right back in,
Right.
Like, I was like, okay, let's just go.
And that's the thing about Bill and Ted movies. I mean, if we're thinking about the time travel logic for more than like 30 seconds, it just breaks down and you just have too many questions. So you just have to accept that what the movie shows you happened, that's what's happening, and just go with it.
Yeah, especially this one. It's
this one.
Crazy confusing if you really kind of break it down. But that's why they have the Kid Cudi character. It's like, he's going to be in there and give you a bunch of mumbo jumbo, like technical speak, and that just explains everything.
Totally.
I was like, good screenwriting because it works.
Yeah, no, that totally works. I like the Kid Cudi character a lot. Kid Cudi's performance is actually one of the weaker points of the movie, I think, for me.
Yeah. And I also feel like we're jumping way ahead here, but like, I feel like maybe it's because I'm like 40. I know who Kid Cudi is, but more as an actor, and like I feel like if you're going to get like this mega producer, it should have been like Pharrell or somebody else.
Yeah.
And maybe they couldn't afford him or they didn't get it. Kid Cudi's also an actor, so that makes it easier. Mm-hmm. He also isn't picked by the girls. He just kind of shows up.
Right.
So it all works, but again, like in that crucial role, when they got Dave Grohl for a little cameo, who is a rock god.
Right.
Yeah.
You're like, okay.
Yeah. But like in terms of like form and function, I liked the Kid Cudi part a lot. I love just like, oh, I have the science. Here you go, guys. And then of course we need someone to say station in the movie, and it's going to be Kid Cudi, and that made me happy.
Yes, because that part did happen. Them performing with station. So.
Right. Yes, that totally did. The actual performance did totally happen. It did go out all over the world.
Yes.
But yeah, I guess we did jump ahead a bit.
Yes.
But you did mention the Dave Grohl cameo, and I did want to mention one thing. I did read that, and apparently originally the joke in this new screenplay, that was supposed to be Eddie Van Halen, and they couldn't get Eddie Van Halen, and that just
so
kind of
perfect.
I know that's the perfect version of that joke, is that it's Eddie Van Halen's house.
Yeah,
but
just bring it all together. Which is so. What the heck are you doing, Eddie Van Halen?
I know.
Dave Grohl's way busier. Dave Grohl directs movies now.
Dave Grohl will do anything for $5 and a slice of pizza, I feel like.
No, that's true. He was the drummer in Nirvana.
Yeah,
he's fine. But yeah, it's like I said, I love that the movie takes the time travel and triples it. You know, so
Yeah.
you have the 3 stories, and I wrote this in my review today. I didn't kind of even think about it until seeing the movie, where it was like, another thing that I love the Bill and Ted movies, probably not as much as you, Alex, but I loved them a lot. And but the one thing I was like, are these guys really worthy? Like, why these guys? Like,
Sure.
They're not smart. Like, they don't have any talent. They have to work for it. But in spoilers, Billy and Thea, you get the Bill and Ted who are worthy, who are smart.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I didn't kind of even think about it until I was writing. And I was like, oh, yeah, like, obviously they're the Bill and Ted who saved the world, not their dads, but like they're the evolved version of the characters. And it's kind of the whole movie is like the evolved version of the franchise.
Yeah. I loved their characters a lot. I thought Samara Weaving and Bridget Lundy Payne were fantastic as Thea and Billy. Bridget's like version of Keanu from the 80s especially is like an amazing thing to watch. I thought they were so sharply written, and just the fact like they have all the same qualities about Bill and Ted, except they're really smart about music. That's what's different about them.
Yeah,
is that
exactly. And that just helps really. It helps move the thing along where, you know, you get Bill and Ted are on their dumb journey,
right,
to try to cheat everything,
right, which is
and Billy and Thea like, oh, we have like, it's such a. This is again. I'm sorry to be like yapping. I love the movie a lot, but it's like. I remember when I saw the second trailer, and I saw that it was basically going to be the daughters who saved the world. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, I wish I didn't know that. But then you watch the movie, and they don't spoil that the way they do it, which is so simple and smart, which is, let's just go get the best musicians that ever lived.
Right.
Like, oh, my, and when they got like Jimi Hendrix, and I realized what was happening, I'm like, oh, yes. I'm so glad I didn't know this. What a great idea. Why didn't Bill and Ted do this at some point? Like, you idiots.
I love the fact that they go back in time and they keep going further back so that the people that they've recruited have a frame of reference, and they admire the people that they're going to get. Yeah,
I love that too. I loved going back to the cave people times 2 and getting Grog, I think was that character's name, maybe.
I don't remember.
But yeah, just going that far back. Which I did feel was kind of a reference to deleted material with the cavemen from Excellent Adventure. The cavemen that are in like one shot in Excellent Adventure had like 2 scenes that got cut. I kind of felt like...
I think it's also easier, like, casting wise.
Yeah.
Like, because I read an interview today that instead of Jimi Hendrix, it was originally going to be Elvis. Mm-hmm. But like, it was just too hard and too expensive.
Right.
You know, I think, you know, you do 3 names of people that everybody knows: Mozart,
Louis Armstrong.
Louis Armstrong, sorry, and Jimi Hendrix. And then you go back to just like music pioneers that people don't know. Most people I didn't know.
Right.
You know, and it's just like it doesn't matter what they look like. It doesn't, you don't have to worry about it. And nobody knows what Mozart, I mean, people know what Mozart looked like from like paintings, but
yeah, sure.
You know, but Jimi Hendrix and Louis Armstrong we know. So it was, again, just so smart at almost every turn.
Yeah. And I think for me, is it fast forwarding too far if we talk about the ending? I guess we shouldn't talk about the ending quite yet. I don't know.
we already
you can wherever you want with it.
We did it. Well, we broke the structure. Who cares?
I'm sorry, guys.
No, it's just
my fault.
as much.
It's
just as much my fault, man. I love every part of this movie, but I love so much about the ending. It solves a problem that there often has been in like the history of movies and TV that are talking about the fictional best of a thing that's ever happened, which is inevitably we have to see or hear this best thing ever, and it can't possibly be because it's only a thing that was created to be inside of this other thing. And so I love just on a writing level that this movie disregards that conceptually. I like the ending song. It sounds nice. It sounds, C major, 113 beats a minute. Like that's an up song that people are going to get into, but it's not like this incredible composition. And what we learn is like the thing that really needed to happen is everybody playing it at once, everybody working together to do one thing. That's what brings the world into harmony. It's not necessarily the song, it's that everybody was cooperating. And that is such a beautiful idea to cap off the Bill and Ted movies, I think.
Yeah. It reminds me of the Tenacious D song. I forget what it's called now.
Tribute.
But yeah, like tribute. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
which is basically just Bill and Ted, where it's like, oh, we got to play this best song, but we forgot it. But they're actually playing a really great song.
Right.
So you nailed it. It was and that ending of that notion of like we all need to come together. It's like, oh my God, like I mean that's a great notion at any time, but like in 2020, where it's boom boom, everybody's going crazy. It was so beautiful. I was like, oh, what a great ending. What a great way to send this off.
Yeah.
And if we really want to break the structure, we talk about the end credit scene too. I mean, that's just the cherry on top.
I loved the post credits scene. Just old wise Bill and Ted having one last jam for us to see.
Because you don't get that in this. The whole movie is kind of them. They've already gotten through that.
Right.
So to finally get them to do their kind of ready Bill, ready Ted. And you're like, oh, I thought they were going to drop dead though. I thought they were literally just going to drop dead.
I did think Alex Winter's last line of just nurse was was particularly great. And while we're talking about that scene, I would just call out right now the absolutely incredible makeup effects work of Kevin Yeager in this movie. Mm-hmm. And Travis, I don't know if you noticed this, but Kevin Yeager was responsible for Station and the rest of the special effects makeup in Bogus Journey. So that's another personnel carryover into this movie, and just his work on Old Bill and Ted and Robot Dennis Caleb McCoy and like all of it, the muscular Bill and Ted's, beer gut Bill and Ted, like it all just looked so good.
Yeah, it's great, and it really like you kind of see why like Keanu would come back. Yeah, because I know that was kind of like the sticking point early on. Is like Keanu's too big a star now, But like you give him, you get to dress up as yourself and like all these different characters. Like who wouldn't do that as anybody, let alone a famous actor? So cool, and you mentioned Dennis. Dennis to me, Caleb that's where the movie. Yeah, the movie is good. Is very very good. You introduce him, and you're like, okay, but when he kind of becomes sentient, that's when the movie for me is just perfection. He is so funny at every line. I like he just completely steals the movie for me. Yeah. I was howling at everything he said. His timing, the repetition, just that kind of like innocence. Just such a great character. It's such a balance to Bill and Ted. He's kind of like what you'd imagine maybe Bill and Ted would have been at like 5 or something. From like Bogus Journey.
Yeah, totally.
And he gets to the point where like the both of them have like lost patience with him. We get it.
Yeah. Bill and Ted's patience is just a bit thinner after 25 years. Just a bit though. Just a little bit. But yeah, Anthony Carrigan as Dennis was so funny. And I do want to say, like, in my first viewing, my initial reaction was like, okay, we have another killer robot from the future trying to kill Bill and Ted. And just for a little bit of the movie, I was just worried about that retread and worried about like, okay, so there's another killer robot they have to escape. But then the killer robot becomes his own killer robot and just becomes his own character and is like absolutely one of the runaway funniest parts of this movie.
Yeah. Again, evolution of the other films. They take the idea, set you up with the expectation, and smash it to smithereens. Yeah. Yeah, I can't talk enough about him. I want action figures. I want Dennis Caleb McCoy.
I would love a Dennis Caleb McCoy action figure.
It's got to come.
Be awesome.
We have William Sadler back as Death, who's like that's the first time I'd been tearing up through a lot of the movie, but the first time like tears fell is when they all hugged and the band really got back together. That the first scene with Death I thought was so funny. He's so great in that scene.
So great. And you want to talk? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Travis.
Oh, it's all right. He just like comes back into the character so well, and it's crazy that the actor is 70 now, and he just. I mean, I know he's covered with a lot of makeup, but you just would not be able to tell.
No.
And I just came off a Bogus Journey, and it was hard to tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love his room in Hell.
Yeah.
With all the memorabilia and stuff that also tells the story. Yeah. It's really good production design there, set design. I really love that. And the stuff between the kids and him. Yeah. Really kind of and that kind of really does fit in with the Bogus Journey credits because he obviously in the Bogus Journey credits super famous and had his own album and went back to Wild Stallions. And so to get him to see how that he actually was this transcendent musician, and that they really respected him and knew his album, you know, it elevates him, it elevates them.
Yeah.
Just again, excellent and really, really funny. Where they don't like the one song, they're like, it's okay. The other one's
the other one, and these 3 bars are amazing.
Yeah. Oh man, thank you. Yeah, great. That chemistry between the girls is just Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves. You know, like
totally,
just nailed it.
They found the magic again somehow. I forgot to look up who the casting director was, but I do know that in the original film, the director Stephen Herrick was responsible ultimately for the casting of Alex and Keanu initially. You know, he and producer Scott Krupp, who produced this movie too, were doing the casting sessions, and they found Alex and Keanu. And then again with this movie, it was Dean Pariseau and Scott Krupp who really found Samara and Bridget, which just incredible. The Ed Solomon and Chris Matheson keep saying that this is it for Bill and Ted for us. Like, we think this is the end. We're done, and that's fine. I would watch Billy and Thea, whatever. I would watch any of that.
Oh, great point. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I just really enjoyed them, and I just don't know where their story would go. But I guess you could have said that after Bogus Journey with Bill and Ted. Yeah. They did it. You know.
Yeah.
And so,
or maybe
Billy and Thea go through their own fame and stardom after this.
Yeah, maybe they're super producers now.
Yeah.
Maybe they're super producers, and like we go through their adventures, like pulling historical musicians from different times in history and recording supergroup albums.
Or maybe they have to like explain to the world that this time travel exists, and they're the ones who kind of have to deal with the ramifications. Well, I guess the world does know. They saw Bill and Ted come out of a phone booth.
Yeah, as Ted explains, like, just so you guys know, I'm kind of like an infinite being.
Yes.
Because everybody had the instruments.
That was great. Yeah. I only watched it the one time on Friday, but I'm dying to watch it again just because. I feel like there's so much, and like, I know it was kind of budgetary, but like it's just so. It's so tight and clean, like, that's what she said. But like my boss, I was talking to my boss, and she's like, I really think it missed like a music montage. She's like, I love like the music montage in like Excellent Adventure, and I'm thinking like, that was a bigger movie. This is not a movie that's that big, you know?
Yeah.
You know, and so I think like it's just kind of a Swiss watch in a way, you know, without the time travel stuff. So I want to watch it again and kind of see like what gets set up earlier. I mean, Alex, you watched it twice. Is there anything else you noticed on a second viewing?
Not so much in terms of like stuff that I noticed early on that paid off later. It was more one of these things. I mean, when I kind of likened it to listening to a new album by one of my favorite bands that I've listened to for 30 years. Like, you want to love the new album, but when it's the first time you hear it, you don't quite know how to put it in context. You're just like, I know I want to love this. I know I trust in how it was created. And that's absolutely true of this movie, because we know that like it was written by the guys who wrote the first 2 movies. It was written on spec. Them and the producer Scott Krupp and Dean Pariseau, director, had been trying for 10 years without getting paid to just get this movie made. So we know that it's coming from creatively like the right place. So for me, the first viewing versus second viewing was more of like allowing the first viewing to settle, allowing me to kind of know like, okay, this is how the song goes, this is how the album goes. Now I'm gonna dive back in and like really take a look at it as like within this trilogy, within this series. And I think the second time through, it sits very cleanly with the first 2 films.
I find with movies like this, and especially bigger movies, like I said, I like Bill and Ted, but like Travis, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. Like the first time I watch a movie that I've been waiting for like years, it's an out of body experience. You can't believe you're actually seeing it. Like, this is it. This is happening. And it's always about that second viewing for me. Mm-hmm. You know, I walk out and I'm like, okay, that's what happened. You know, his name is Ben Solo. You know, like now I know that that's what it is. And it's not until the second time and you're like, okay, now how does this work? And I feel like, you know, it has a lot to do with expectations. Because the first time you're just kind of digesting the story. Once you know what happens, you kind of focus a little bit more on how it happens.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think that's really where a good movie becomes a great movie.
Yeah.
That's how I thought about Force Awakens. I came
Yeah.
out of that movie just like shell shocked almost. I don't
Same.
know how I feel about that. And then it wasn't until I saw it the second time that I was like, oh yeah, I really do like this.
Yeah.
I mean, it happens with a lot of movies, or the other way around.
Yeah.
Like The Dark Knight Rises. That movie was awesome. I'm like, oh wait, that was not awesome.
I hated that movie the first time.
there
But no, I mean, like, I had a very similar. I'm also a giant Star Wars nerd, and we had. I had a similar reaction to the seeing Force Awakens the first 2 times, and the opposite when I saw Rise of Skywalker 2 times.
Yeah, I knew I hated that immediately.
I didn't.
And
quite
I saw
yet.
your review come out. I was like, oh no.
It actually got a little
The lineup
better.
is this isn't gonna happen.
It actually got better when I knew it was bad. But again, that's just the expectation, you know.
Right.
So like, if Bill and Ted, you know, like if we had gone into it and it was bad, and you watch it again, maybe you'd like it because you know it's bad already. You know, like when you go in clean, even if the reviews came out, like the reviews came out the day of or day before, and they're mostly positive, you're like, okay, I guess it's probably pretty good, you know. But it's still about that first time seeing it and how it works on you.
Yeah. And I mean, I had a wonderful first time. I had a wonderful second time. Let's talk about our leads. Let's talk about Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves a little bit. Alex tapped in somehow to literally exactly the same thing he had been doing as Bill 30 years ago.
Agreed.
Yeah.
He did such a good job, just like falling right back into it.
And he hasn't even been acting for most of the last 25 years.
No, I've been directing, right?
Yeah, he's been making documentaries and directing other stuff. I think one of his last like major roles was in his movie Freaked in 1993, where he was the lead in that. But since then, he's been making films. And for him to just like put the suit back on and just go immediately was such a pleasure to see.
Yeah, it was really like if you had asked me in 1992, what do Bill and Ted look like at 50, I would have thought that they were more like, you know, like bums almost, you know, even if they're successful musicians, still bums, you know.
Sure.
I picture, you know, and I don't even mean because of the ZZ Top beards. I just mean that. But like when you see them now, you're like, yeah, this is it. Like they're just a little bit more mature, a little bit more aware, a little bit more grounded, you know. They don't have their language is a lot more normal,
Yeah.
but it's not normal.
Right.
You know, they're still going to say bodacious and excellent, and they're still going to air guitar, but just in less frequently. And that just feels like growing up. It feels like maturity.
Yeah.
And I think they both nail that, but I do agree that Alex falls in way better. But I think that's also because a big part of Ted, young Ted at least, was the physical.
Yeah.
And Keanu Reeves is older now, so he can't be
He has a different physicality.
right. Billy is that.
Yes,
That's why
absolutely.
You know, yeah, she nails that. Feels a little bit more Ted than Keanu.
Yeah. Do you have thoughts on Alex Winter, Travis, that you wanted to mention before Keanu?
Oh no,
talk?
I mean, other than he does such a good job, like as that character once again, like more so than Keanu. It was just like
it's more the same as it was than Keanu's performance was.
Yeah.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
I liked a lot of what Keanu did, and that was a lot of what I was looking at the second time too, was what Keanu did in the movie. That was something I was really concentrating on the second time around, and I do think it's all of what Ted does. I mean, like the way Ted is in this movie, I think is very much a choice. For me, I always saw Ted as kind of like the thinker between the two. Like Bill pushes them to do the stuff, but Ted is the one that's like, dude, I got a bad feeling about this.
Yeah.
Or like he thinks a little bit more. And I think that for me, I took it as kind of like for 25 years, Ted has been helped be buoyed by Bill's enthusiasm about what they're supposed to do and what they've been doing and everything. But as he says in the beginning of the movie, he's tired. You know, like slogging through all this and dealing with this life, that's gonna take a toll on a person who's thinking about like, well, why haven't we done it yet? Like, it doesn't really seem to have occurred to Bill so much, or at least internalized in Bill so much, like, why haven't we done this yet? But I feel like that's very much internalized in Ted, and that comes out in the performance.
Beautifully said. I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I think, I like you said, I've only seen it the once. Forgot that he says he's tired, and that sort of that is the choice that kind of informs the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
Where he's not as present. He is not as enthusiastic. He's not,
Right.
but he's just a little bit more subdued. And I think that was Keanu's being like, Ted old, dude. Like, it is.
But when they do the air guitar, they definitely still do the air guitar. I mean, like, look at Ted's face when they do the air guitar, and he's still making an old Ted face. It's great.
And the movie doesn't happen, A, without Keanu Reeves, who he is, and B, even if he was not as famous, like, you can't recast these roles, you know?
No.
So to get him back was magic.
Totally. And just, yeah, the fact that, like, you know, this movie cost peanuts. Like, there's amazing talent behind making this movie. Like, Dean Pariseau, I know, for some reason, he hasn't gotten better jobs. I don't know what the deal with his career is. I don't know why he hasn't gotten another shot at something like Galaxy Quest or something since then.
Director of one of the best Star Trek movies of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was like 1996 or 7.
Yeah.
Like, what's he done since then?
No, I know, exactly. Like, I don't know why there hasn't been more movies from him that have been able to get to that point, or that, you know, of that level. And, like, the director of photography is Shelley Johnson, who has shot, like, a million things, but that maybe most notably in recent memory shot Captain America: The First Avenger. So, like, a big-looking movie, which this movie is, but it's obviously a small budget.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's a kind of labor of love, though. Like
totally,
you said earlier,
absolutely.
like they've been trying to do this for so long that, you know, I'm sure nobody made what they would make on any other movie.
Absolutely not. I mean, I'm sure Keanu made scale for the first time in his career in like 10 years or 15 years or something.
Yeah. Give him that back end. Give him that back end.
I did notice that in the closing credits, I did notice that Alex Winter and William Sadler were both credited as producers, but Keanu was not. So that's interesting to me. Wonder if maybe he did get more up front and the others are getting more on the back end. Who knows?
Or he just didn't want to spend as much time on it.
That could be too. That could be too.
And Dean Pariseau, just looking, has been doing a lot of TV.
Oh, has he been
Here and
really
there.
active in TV?
No, I mean, active enough. He's done like 1 or 2 episodes of a lot of things. The most things he did, Justified 4 episodes. Good Girls, that's new.
Oh, okay.
And he made Red 2. Is like only like
Oh, yeah,
real
he
movie.
did
Oh,
make-
Fun and Dick and Jane. So he's been working. He just hasn't been prolific. You know, he had that great movie, and since then he's been kind of, you know, making a living. I think this is seems definitely his best movie since then.
I agree. I mean, I've sat through with Fun with Dick and Jane. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if that movie was responsible for like a lack of theatrical outings on his part since then.
That's a good point. Yeah, yeah. It sounds very possible.
Oh, my cat has joined us. Let's see what else. We do have new Bill and Ted wives. We have
again.
We have the third iteration of Joanna and Elizabeth. We have Erin Hayes as Elizabeth and Jayma Mays as Joanna, who I like both of them very much in the movie, and I like the little princess subplot. I think it's probably my favorite when my favorite scene with them is probably when they're talking about, oh, we have to time travel again, with the therapist, and Jillian Bell is just going like, I think you guys should come in 2, 3, 5 days a week.
I would have liked to seen, like, even if it was like 10 seconds of their story.
Yeah.
You know, like, we only see them on the outskirts, and we see how their story starts from the old folks' home. You know, retirement home is that's probably on PC to say old folks' home. I'm gonna get the old folks, but it's like, yeah, I mean, because obviously the story of Bill and Ted and Billy and Thea are the A stories. I would have just like a little bit more with them because, you know, they are part of the band, and you know that it's pretty crucial to Bill and Ted being happy what happens on their story. So
Totally.
it totally works. But again, that probably might have been a budgetary thing too. Like we said, like, you know, like we gotta keep it to this because it's got to end up at that ending. You know, as long as they're with the girls at the end, it's okay. But that is another like little thing on the movie. It's like I would have liked to seen a little bit more.
Yeah, no, I actually totally agree. Especially if they went through the effort of, like I said, again, recasting the princesses for the third iteration, give them a little bit something more to do. But I feel like there's material that must have been either deleted from the script or deleted from the final cut that had to do with them, because that story did feel like there was more going on that we would have seen a little bit more.
I'm wondering, and you're reading Alex or whatever, did they ever discuss it? Is it a joke that they recast him in every movie, or at what point did that become a thing?
They don't comment on what they say in the commentary tracks on Bogus Journey is that no one remembers why they were recast for Bogus Journey, which I can't believe that's actually true. That no one remembers why they were recast. I mean, like, no slight. I gotta look up the name of the lady who played Joanna in Excellent Adventure, but I know it's not like Diane Franklin played Elizabeth, or actually, weirdly, in Bogus Journey, in Excellent Adventure, the names were switched. The blonde one was Elizabeth, and the brunette was weird. Joanna, and then that got flipped around in Bogus Journey, and that flip around has maintained. But
there you go.
I know, weirdness. But Kimberly Cates was the other princess, and Diane Franklin was the other princess in Excellent Adventure. And Diane Franklin was she had a little bit of an 80s cult thing going on. She was in like The Last American Virgin, and she was in Better Off Dead and Terror Vision and a couple other things like here and there. But Kimberly Cates, I don't think she ever really did that much. Well, 42 credits. I'm wrong. I don't know.
Maybe they just Terrence Howarded it, you know?
Yeah, it could have just been a Terrence Howardy situation.
They would have been like, "Can we get more money?" And they'd be like, "Peace out," you know? Like, seems very, very possible.
Very well could have been.
Yeah, I mean, plus in Bogus Journey, they have no role in Bogus Journey.
They don't have much. They have more than the first movie, honestly, because there is the scene.
Oh, they're in the band.
They're in the band. They audition. They're at the party. And then Bill and Ted propose, and then
a little bit to do.
There's a scene where evil robot Bill and Ted antagonize them into leaving, and they
have to hang from the rafters.
They have to hang from the rafters and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
So they're a bit more involved.
Not that. I don't know, because at this point, like, it feels like it was just funnier to recast it again.
Yeah.
I felt the same way.
That it was just like a joke.
It's also kind of misogynist. It's like, oh, they don't matter.
Yeah.
They just keep putting new people in there.
Yeah.
But, you know, like you said, like, not everything makes sense in a Bill and Ted movie.
No.
But it would have been funny if the future versions of them that had to come back to show them all the realities with Bill and Ted were played by two different actresses as well.
Or the original actresses.
That would have been good. That would have been good.
But that, like Eddie Van Halen, it was not meant to be. You know?
Yeah.
The literal perfection of that.
Yeah, just we need to get Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah.
We also have another newcomer in the movie is Kristen Schaal as Kelly, daughter of Rufus. Who I mean, I love Kristen Schaal, and she's funny in this. I mean, she just does what she does, but it's a funny little role, and she gets to do it, and she's a fun presence in the movie.
She's a fun presence in the movie. I like the new phone booth.
Yeah, the little weird egg pod thing.
Yeah, in like 50 years, they've changed that much.
Yeah.
And obviously the Carlin thing we could talk about, but I did find it's another aspect of the movie I found really interesting was that the future was frustrated with them.
Yeah.
That was a really fun thing to mine, where it's like, you know, in the first two movies, like, it's just told
it's
that
worship.
They're going to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's worship, and the second one, it's Bill and Ted University.
Yeah, it's all like, this all works out in the end. And then, you know, and they're like, well, why isn't it worked out? Which, again, you probably put your mind around it, it doesn't work at all, you know?
Totally.
Especially, I always come back to the moment in the first movie where they're doing the strumming, and you see Bill and Ted, but it's young Bill and Ted, so it's like, they were successful at that age?
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, just forget it. Forget it. So it was like, why is there Bill and Ted University before they actually happen? You know, it doesn't really make sense. But it was interesting that the future was frustrated they couldn't do it. Oh, here's a question. I'm jumping over, but I just thought of it. When old Bill and Ted give them the USB, do you think that has anything on it at all?
Well, the clip that they played, and I verified this the second time, the little clip of audio that old Ted plays for them is actually the guitar solo that Bill and Ted play at the end of the movie.
Okay.
So it seems to be like they did have a recording. Whether or not there was anything on the USB drive is, you know, speculation. But it seems like at that point they were in possession of a recording of the song, which is a friend of mine. That's the thing he has hung up most on the movie is like,
yeah, because it doesn't work because that's supposed to be the same Bill and Ted who they haven't done it yet because they haven't done it yet.
Right.
Yeah.
My postulation is the solution for that is parallel timelines that they were drifting into.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they could have done that, or maybe, or like I guess mine is that whatever they give them isn't the answer. It's just a tool to make them think they did, and that's really what they needed.
Very well could have been, because I mean, obviously, like they are.
Yeah, they do
them.
listen to something or whatever. Yeah, but
yeah, because like obviously, old Bill and Ted are them. They know what they did, and that's one of my favorite jokes in the movie is when they're trying to in Dave Grohl's house when they're trying to escape from the British versions of themselves. They're like, we have to do something we can't possibly remember. And then just the answer is putting buckets on their heads and stumbling around. Oh, yeah. I was really hoping they wouldn't remember that thing.
And then Bill pulls a gun on him and it's gonna
He does.
And then the prison Bill and Ted like saved younger selves because they're like, it's gonna erase us.
Yeah. They're just pragmatic about it.
Yeah, trying to kill him.
Yeah, they kind of actually, the other Bill and Ted become less douchey as they get older, I guess.
They do, yeah.
Right? Yeah, because eventually they're in the nursing home, and and then they're finally kind to them. And those are touching moments too. Yeah, they are. Like I remember watching it and being like, what would I say to like my younger self and my older self? Like, I mean, obviously, in most time travel movies they can't meet because that would blow up everything. But Bill and Ted doesn't matter.
Bill and Ted don't care.
But I was like, this is really kind of touching and beautiful. And then to see how different the Bills and the Teds are with each other, is really cool. Yeah.
And it is nice too. And I didn't think about this before, and I'm just kind of now realizing it. The only time that Bill and Ted that we see in a movie that Bill and Ted have a pleasant interaction with other versions of themselves is that very first meeting in the very first movie. In the second movie, their encounter isn't an encounter with themselves. It's an encounter with evil robot versions of themselves. And then in this movie, alternate Bill and Ted are dicks up until they're old men. So that's the only time we actually have a really nice interaction between Bill and Ted and Bill and Ted.
Yeah, it's the bookends.
Yeah, exactly. And what nice little things the writers have done for us.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I remember thinking, I mean, obviously the USB has the names on it, which makes them realize. And I didn't like the very, very, very early. Oh, here we go. Boom. To move back to the Kristen Shaw future stuff.
Great.
I hated that she goes, well, remember what your dad said, Preston and Logan. And I'm like, oh, we got it. Like, it's so obvious that it's going to be the daughters. And I'm like, you didn't have to, like, telegraph that so obvious.
Sure. Yeah.
Like they could have just said Bill and Ted, and then when they do Preston Logan on the USB would have been a little bit cleaner. But I guess, like not everybody's gonna pick up on it right away.
Yeah, you know what, dude? In all honesty, I didn't pick up on it right away.
Well, there you go. Because Rufus has never used their like names like that. So when she goes, when the future, when she goes, when the supreme being or whatever leader,
the great leader,
says, she goes, she uses their last names specifically, and knowing, I guess maybe it's me thinking from the trailer that was how the movie's going to end. I was like, oh yeah, there it is. There's your marker of it all pays off.
Yeah.
But I like the new future.
I like the design of the new future. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Rufus thing was a nice little touch.
Yeah.
Odd that the time machine still works, but that's okay.
Yeah, like whatever.
Yeah.
One little design. Actually, there was to rewind really quick back to, I forgot to mention this when you were talking about Death's little office apartment thing. In one shot, not in the main shot of like you can see like the dead on from the behind his chair, but in one of the side shots from when he's talking to Bill and Ted, you can see the electric football table from Bogus Journey like in the corner of the room. But similar to that, in the future, when the guitars all pop up, there's Bill and Ted's headless guitars that Rufus gives them at the end of Excellent Adventure are hanging in the guitar display.
That's cool.
And the Gibson SG that Bill plays is Alex Winter's tribute to Frank Zappa, because he directed a Frank Zappa documentary that's coming out sometime in the future. But that's his little tribute.
That's nice. Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah. See, there you go. So you noticed stuff on the second viewing.
Yeah.
Sure, this thing is full of so many Easter eggs.
Yeah.
Oh, and of course we have to mention that we have Hal Landon Jr. back as Ted's dad, Chief Logan, who's again just so funny, and we get the great scene. I'm so sorry. I owe you such an apology. All of this is true, which implies that it's true. Blah blah blah. Yeah.
All three, Death, Missy, and Ted's dad all kind of get like crucial like roles that like redeem them in a way. Like Missy, of course, is like whatever. It's weird that she's with the younger guy, but it's okay. Like they're in love with her, and it's fine. And then the fact that his dad forgives him means a lot. Did the actor who played Bill's dad pass or something?
I don't know. That is a good question.
Yeah,
and that's even a question I had going back to like Bogus Journey, because it is the same actor that plays him in Bogus Journey, but he's only in Bogus Journey for like half a second. He's in like two shots or something. So I was actually curious about that too. I thought it would have been a funny joke to. It seems like he's still alive. He doesn't have an acting credit since 2016 on IMDb, but it seems like he's still around.
Maybe
like,
he didn't want to come back. That's okay.
That's possible. But I did think that would have been a funny thing if he was been another guest at the wedding.
Yes.
Because Alex, you had mentioned the same thing regarding David Newman not doing the music.
Right, yeah, that was a thing. So Mark Isham does the score in this, and I think he does a very good job of evoking the feeling of the score from the first two films. I think that I can't remember scenes specifically, but I think in Hell, the reunion scene between Bill and Ted and Death, I think is very evocative of music from the first two movies. But I was just looking up and wondering why it wasn't David Newman who scored both of the first two films, when like there wasn't, the princesses didn't carry over, the director didn't carry over, a lot didn't carry over from the first film, but David Newman on the score did. David Newman is still working, and Travis and I just learned right before the show, scored Galaxy Quest. So it's not as if Dean Parisot hadn't worked with him before. That's
an interesting connection that didn't carry through.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, if you look at his IMDb, the dude is busy as hell.
Oh, yeah.
So, like,
Yeah.
So he probably just couldn't.
That's very possible.
Yeah.
That was just like a little thing. I would have liked the further David Newman score in this movie. But again, I have no complaints about what Mark Isham did. I thought the score was very effective and did what it needed to do. Which Bill and Ted scores aren't like amazing classic scores. They're kind of just up broad strokes kind of scores that just serve the broad comedy, but do so very well.
Yeah, you remember the songs more for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And the songs in here are good. Even like the song at the wedding, you're like, I want to hear the rest of that.
I actually really like the wedding song.
Yeah, it's like, it's not a banger, but I kind of listen. I get into it. I like the Weezer song in the credits.
Sure.
I wish I could hear more of Dave Grohl's song, but that sounded pretty good from the little I heard.
Yeah.
It goes back to what you said before about like having to create something that's that great is so impossible, because if you did, it would be its own thing. But like, so I think Bill and Ted always cover that really well. Like the song at the end of Bogus Journey, we watched Bogus Journey like on Wednesday, and then I watched this on Friday, and I still right now have that song on my head.
Oh yeah, this is an example of my Bill and Ted nerdery. So the guitar solos, all the air guitar stuff in Bogus Journey is all by the guitar player Steve Vai, who's like this amazing virtuoso guitar player. And they had the Kiss song "God Gave Rock and Roll to You" for the ending thing, but they didn't think that the beginning of the song was quite triumphant enough. So the whole like first minute and a half of epic guitar solos is Steve Vai, then leads into the Kiss track. But on the soundtrack, it's just the Kiss track. There's no Steve Vai guitar solo at the beginning. And growing up, I was always super bummed out by that. But a handful of years ago, Steve Vai put out a collection of music that he did for movies, and it included that minute and a half of guitar music, without anything else, without any of the Kiss stuff underneath it. So of course, like for my personal listening pleasure, I have on my iPod just those two things mixed together for the complete correct version of the epic song at the end.
Love it. I love it. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing, sir.
And it's still like the only Kiss song I like.
I don't love Kiss. I like some of their songs, but that song is catchy as hell, and I really like it.
The soundtracks for both movies I really love.
Yeah, totally. They're great.
Also,
Yeah,
think about the beginning with the wedding song is with what they're trying to do. They keep picking up all these different instruments, and when you see where it goes at the end, they were kind of like onto the right thing almost. It's just like they did not have the capacity to do it all themselves, and it had to be distributed to everybody.
Yeah.
All of time and space.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I didn't really think of it as a demo run, but it kind of is like a bit of a demo run for just having this massive band playing all these disparate instruments all in the key of C major.
Yeah.
It all matches. It always matches.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm excited to watch this movie again after some time.
After talking to you guys about it, now I do want to watch it again.
Oh, another person that came back. This is like apropos of nothing, but another crew person that came back was another makeup artist. The guy who did Death's makeup, Bill Corso, also did Death's makeup on Bogus Journey and on Face the Music. And I just love that they kept it such a family thing. Yeah.
I think when you're a part of something that's special and that people really like, it's yours. You own it. So. Yeah, that is really cool. I didn't know that. I didn't really follow up on any of that stuff, but that's really interesting and cool that they would come back. Because really, just kind of get anybody. Look, there's photo reference.
Totally.
It's white makeup.
Totally.
Bill Sadler there.
Yeah.
Sure, but that gives it a little extra oomph when you get the real person.
Yeah, and I had forgotten that there was kind of like a longer road to making another Bill and Ted movie, and that in 2007. I can't believe that this was ever a theoretically proposed title, but there is a script that exists. This podcast called The Table Read has been reading it on their podcast, but it was called Bill and Ted's Friggin' Badass Voyage, which I hate as a title. But it was going to be a Bill and Ted movie without Keanu. And like Bill may be played by somebody else, because at the time Keanu Reeves' agent said there is no way Keanu will ever do another Bill and Ted movie. It would ruin his career. Which
real nice sentiment.
How far we've come in 13 years that like Keanu has ascended to the point where he can do anything he wants, and that's okay.
John Wick will help that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've been. Because of my Bill and Ted diehardness, that's really what's made me a Keanu fan my whole life. But just like I love the resurgence in Keanu popularity, and I'm so glad that he was able to channel that into doing this, which is like, and that's like, aside from just the writers writing this, and aside from Alex Winter coming back and all this stuff, the fact that like Keanu would be like, because this is a favor movie for him, basically.
Oh yeah.
Like the fact that he would do that favor, which is not an easy favor to do. It's a performance. It's 2 months out of your life. It's like, there's a bunch going along with that. And that's what, to me, made me never worry about what the quality of the movie was. It's like, we have Bill and Ted. We have the guys who created Bill and Ted. How could it go that wrong?
They didn't have to make it. They made it because they wanted to.
Yeah.
Because they were like, we have a story to tell that people like. And that's why it works, It wasn't like some sequel that was forced or had a release date already in play or any of those things like that.
Totally. And like let's not discount the fact that like, Chris Matheson and Ed Solomon are working screenwriters. Like Ed Solomon maybe most famously wrote Men in Black, but like recently wrote Steven Soderbergh's miniseries Mosaic on HBO, which like had this app where you could it was kind of like a choose your own adventure kind of thing, and that's how it was originally presented. So like, and he wrote Now You See Me as well, and like this other stuff. So it's like these are working dudes, and they wrote this movie on spec. Like they didn't get paid to do this at all. And I can't imagine asking a working writer just like, hey, can you just draft something up? Just we're not going to pay you, but just kick something around.
Well, it's like we said about the makeup artists and things like that. It's like it's their baby. So it's like we wrote the first movie the same way, they wrote it just kind of on spec or on just, they wanted kind of to write this movie, and they feel an ownership towards it, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, well, let's do this. There's the demand for it, obviously a groundswell that kind of helps get it done.
Yeah.
And again, which speaks to the quality. Yeah,
Totally.
I love this movie, man. I'm really happy with. I'm really happy with it. It's nice. It's nice in this crazy, crazy time to have like a cool new movie to talk about. You know, something
Yeah.
you definitely would have paid to see in theaters. Though, here's a question: do you think if it was in theaters, it would have been a hit? I think it would have done okay, but I don't think it would have been like a huge hit.
No, I think, it's
kind of
probably
niche.
gonna.
I think it's
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it's probably going to do better. I think it's going to do really well once we see some streaming numbers, like some whatever revenue they got from VOD. Once we see that number, I think we'll be pretty impressed. I did read the weekend box office. New Mutants made $7 million somehow this weekend, and Bill and Ted came in number 3 at 1.06, I think, through drive-ins basically. But I don't know if it would have been a hit. I don't even know what the release. I don't even know what the release would have been like in a non-pandemic world.
I think kind of would have got buried. I mean, like,
yeah, I
people
feel like it would have been.
us would have been excited about it, but
Yeah.
you know, we would have still been talking about whatever huge movies, and the fact that it is the huge movie kind of is nice. But I
Yeah.
don't think it was designed to be that. I think
No.
it was designed to be an August movie that gets the cult status like its other, and obviously the other movies were hits, especially Excellent Avenger. But like, excuse me, yeah, I think it was more like that. My cat.
Yeah, no, it's crazy that it's like just kind of outpacing Tenet as far as buzz right now.
Totally.
Well, people can watch this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's also there. I don't think there can be enough said for the fact that like this movie isn't mean. This movie isn't cynical. This movie doesn't look down on anyone. This movie has like a relentlessly positive attitude, a really nice message, and just a lot of love on the screen, and you can tell behind the camera as well. And that's a feeling that I think a lot of us are looking for, like a genuine presentation of that feeling. It's not contrived in this movie. It doesn't feel like they're like, oh, we need to go for the emotional hook now. The emotional hooks just work because the material works and the performances work.
There. Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like it's kind of, whether it would have been a hit or not, I think this is ultimately a great way for it to be released,
Totally.
Obviously, we wish there wasn't a killer virus everywhere, but like at the same time, like for it to come out now when everybody's kind of down, for it to come out when in a time when it can be kind of highlighted more than it might have in theaters, as great as I'm sure it'll play in the theater eventually, this feels right. It feels like a movie that wasn't like Tenet. I think that's a whole other podcast, but like that's a movie that was made to be seen like that. And Chris Nolan movies, get smaller as they do that, and they don't work as well. This was a movie that, would have been great on the big screen, but it works perfect here.
Totally.
And I think, which is why they were like immediately embraced the VOD, play where we can, but let's just do it. And they really like went all in on it. And how financially successful that'll be, but like, even if it's not, it's a movie that's going to find its audience. It's going to make people happy now.
Yeah.
And the work will end up being worth it.
Totally. Well said. I totally agree. Yeah. And just I also want to just shout out to whoever's running the media machine behind this movie, because they're doing a very good job getting these interviews and promos and stuff out there. I've been seeing nothing but Bill and Ted stuff for like the last week and a half.
Yeah.
It's been great.
Also, Germain, I want to be respectful of your time, so if you need to bow out at any time, you just
I'm gonna have to get out here a little bit, guys. I have I have dinner to make. I have cats to feed.
No worries, man.
But thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for
awesome
joining us.
to virtually meet you guys and talk about this movie. It was great. And maybe in a couple months when we go back to a galaxy far, far away, we'll talk again.
Please.
Oh yeah,
That'd be great, man.
All right. Have a good night, guys.
Thanks a lot, Jermaine. Later.
Bye.
Thank you.
Oh, that was nice.
Yeah.
Germain Lussier, everybody. That was super fun. I'm a big fan of that dude. It was super fun to talk to him about this very, very geeky little movie. Oh wait, where's the sound cue? Yeah.
There it is.
So yeah, man, I don't know what my further thoughts are on Bill and Ted. I just for me, if maybe I'll just go out a little bit of a stupid personal thing. I don't really understand how Bill and Ted have come to mean so much to me throughout the course of my life. But They do. I know that part of it is I mean, this is, I'm sorry to get heavy on a podcast. My dad passed away when I was 5. You know this. And, you know, I'm 34. I've processed these emotions. So it's fine. But the things that were my dad's influence that are still very much a part of me are things I hold more sacred than maybe other things that are interests of mine. These things include my favorite bands, Devo and They Might Be Giants, a lot of just musicianship in general. He and my mom were both giant Twin Peaks fans. You know, like, a lot of this stuff, like, genetically has passed down. But one of the things he did show me before he passed was definitely at least Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. I don't think Bogus Journey was possible timeline-wise, but he definitely showed me Excellent Adventure, like, when I was 5 years old or younger. And these are just movies I watched all the time growing up. I had a VHS tape where I taped off TV Bogus Journey, except it picked up maybe 20 minutes into the movie, but I just caught it. I was like, oh, blank tape, record Bogus Journey right now. I'm like, you know, probably 9 years old. And then at some other point down the line, I had caught a broadcast on, like, you know, the WB or something of Excellent Adventure, all, like, cut up for time and dubbed for audio censorship, and taped that on the tape after Bogus Journey. And then sometime after that, I had found another Bogus Journey airing and just taped the first 20 minutes of Bogus Journey after Excellent Adventure, so that the tape would stop after Bogus Journey, it would be ready at Excellent Adventure, then I get to watch 20 minutes of Bogus Journey, rewind the whole tape, and then start from the beginning of the tape. And I don't know. I have a complete set, like, behind me. You can't really see it, but on that shelf is a complete series of these Bill and Ted action figures. The Kenner 1991 series. I have reactions dolls back there too. I have a Bill and Ted poster there, original Bogus Journey thing. There are very few things that I was looking forward to reboot wise or new iteration wise more than this. And Travis, it's done, man. Like, what more could possibly be redone? I mean, I've been thinking about this myself. In my lifetime, in my adult lifetime, I've gotten new Star Wars. I've gotten new Evil Dead. I got new Twin Peaks, and it was perfect.
That's crazy.
Reno 911 came back, and I got to work on it. Like, all these things, everything Clone High is getting rebooted with the original creators. Like, literally everything I could ever think that there should be more of, now including Bill and Ted, there has been more of. And I have to say, like, Twin Peaks being a whole different category because it broke television. But Bill and Ted is, like, this is my favorite thing, man.
Yeah. No, that's crazy. That's just, yeah. All of the things, some of which have come back in a good way, and some of which have, you know, done what Bill and Ted Face the Music did,
where the people who were responsible for the property shepherded it correctly with love and care, and did what they thought was correct, and it was correct.
Yeah, they did. So before we, like, wrap up, I'm gonna, like, go through, like, any other tidbits about the movie that that you liked. I've got a bunch of quotes.
Yeah, just quote it, man. Wait.
When they go back in time to the marriage counseling, and they're talking about future thems that are doing the open mics, and Bill's like, "Oh, dude, we are totally living in that van."
Yeah. We'll fix it. Just this face that Bill keeps doing this, like, with 2 thumbs up, totally happy.
When the daughters go back and they show Louis Armstrong, Jimi Hendrix playing guitar, and they're showing him on the phone, and he's just like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
And he, like, you know, calls some guys over, and then you hear in the background, you hear this one guy go, "What you got there, Lou? Hey, what's that doohickey?"
I didn't notice that. I'm gonna have to listen to that next time. I wish there were more quotes. The only quote on IMDb is the quote about Clara Rockmore on theremin, and Clara Rockmore is an amazing theremin musician, by the way. That's the one joke I got. Like this, like, oh my god, there's a Clara Rockmore reference in this movie. What other quotes you got, man?
Ted, seriously, slow down on the vodka, dude. And then he just continues to yeah, I love that whole like subplot of future Ted just turning into an alcoholic.
Yeah.
That's another, yeah, and that sequence where they're talking to the wives, and he's like, "I got a bad drinking problem." Like, you don't drink? He's like, "Yeah, but I'm gonna." And we're such liars. Oh, we totally made it worse.
We're such liars. Yeah, man. I want to write down more quotes from this movie because there's this one that I'm struggling to remember, and the verbiage is so perfect. It's a Thea line when Kid Cudi comes in, and Kid Cudi like goes on his first whole time travel spiel, and she responds something. It's this movie's version of when Bill tells Billy the Kid, "You are dealing with the oddity of time travel with the greatest of ease." It's this movie's equivalent of that line.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of such fun dialogue in this movie.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have anything more to say about this movie. I love it to death. There are things you could nitpick, but why bother?
Yeah. Yeah, no, you could do the thing that Bruce Willis tells Joseph Gordon-Levitt version of himself in the diner, where like we can walk around and do all the the explaining, but we're not going to do that. This movie does not do that.
Yeah, and we don't want that. We got everything we wanted out of this movie. And to the people who are upset by the things that you can't really explain, I'm sorry, it's not the movie for you, man. Like, yeah. That's a bummer to me. It's also a bummer to me. I do want to say there is a vocal minority, much like there is an angry vocal minority in this country. There is an angry vocal minority about this movie who are just mad as hell that women have a large part to do with it. They're mad as hell that Bill and Ted have daughters and not sons, and that like there's this. I've seen more than one person comment, every new character in the first 20 minutes is a woman, and I'm just like, no, it's not. It's just actually factually not.
There are too many Mary Sues in this movie, Alex.
It's so dumb. Just get over yourselves, people. Like, this movie is asking you to laugh and love. That's all the movie is asking you to do. And I think it does both of those things. It made me do both of those things. I love this movie, and it makes my heart happy.
Yeah.
So those are my words on Bill and Ted Face the Music. If should for God forbid anybody that worked on Bill and Ted Face the Music listen to this podcast at some point, thank you for everything you've done, because this was the movie that I needed in 2020. My favorite movie of the year by far.
Yeah, I think it's a movie that I think a lot of the world needs in 2020.
Yeah, the world needs Bill and Ted.
Yeah.
So yeah, and again, thanks to Germain for joining us. That was awesome. That was most resplendent to have Germain join us for Bill and Ted Chats.
Mm-hmm. And again, you can find Germain's work at Gizmodo and IO9. You can find him at Germain Lussier on Twitter, which we will tag him in the show notes for this episode. And so until then, or I guess until next time, here's some info coming up. We've got Boys Banter starting next week, in which you and I and Dustin are going to be covering season 2 of the Amazon Prime series, The Boys.
And we're covering the first 3 episodes.
Yes.
On the first episode, right? Because it's a dump.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a new option.
Yeah. I'm excited for the opposite feeling of Bill and Ted that is The Boys.
Yeah.
But I'll probably watch Bill and Ted another 2 times before we talk again, so. So I'm psyched for that. Come back for Boys Banter with us and Dustin Meadows.
Yes. And then coming up in October, we still don't know when exactly. We still don't even have a trailer, which I thought there was going to be a trailer drop over the weekend because Star Wars Celebration was supposed to happen this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
But Mandalorian and Mandalorian Minute will be coming back in October when that does happen. So stay tuned for that as well. And in the meantime, Alex, where can people find more of you?
Check out what Travis did in this lower third. You can find me at Alex Brunel on Twitter and Instagram. Check it totally out.
Yeah, that'll be a constant thing now, I think, on all the streams.
Nice. And what about this show? Talk about where people can find this show.
You can find the show at Who Watches Pod on Twitter. On Instagram, we stream live to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch every week. And you can listen to an audio version of this podcast on any podcast catcher of your choice, whether it's Apple Podcast or Stitcher or Spotify, you name it. Please subscribe, leave reviews, and you can email the show at whowatchespodcast@gmail.com.
Indeed. And if I may, and please finish me out on this one, be excellent to each other.
And party on, dudes.